everyone, Dorothy from the Neon Tea Party here. Today I'm going to be walking you through how to make these adorable smiley face pom-poms. They come together fairly quick once you get the anatomy of how to get these eyes and mouths woven into your pom-poms, so let's get started. So here is what you will need to make a smiley face pom-pom. You'll need a loom tool, that's what we're going to make the pom-pom on. You're going to need yarn in 2 contrasting colors. I'm going to work with the traditional yellow and black today, but as you saw at the top of the video, you can really work in any colors you like as long as they have a strong contrast. You're also going to need some sort of trim guide to get their pom-poms perfectly circular, and then you're going to need some scissors, and what's really going to help is a yarn needle. We're not going to use these for actually stitching on the pom-poms, but you'll see the face kind of gets a little discombobulated during the trimming process, and this helps get that face right back into shape. So let's start making our first smiley face pom. So for the smiley face pom-pom, I'm going to be showing you today, it's going to be a 1.75 inch pom-pom. So I'm going to be working on the smaller side of the loom tool. I'll also be giving you recommendations on the number of times you want to wrap around to get this ratio. However, if you're making a larger pom-pom or a smaller pom-pom, you'll want to adjust those numbers accordingly. It might take 1 or 2 test pom-poms to get your numbers right, but then if you're making something like a garland or a pair of earrings, that sort of thing, you want to keep those counts the same so that all of the pom-poms are exactly the same. So like I said, I'm doing the smaller side of my loom tool for a 1.75 inch pom-pom. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do here is wrap the center. You know what, I'm going to keep this guy on hand so I can reference back. What I'm going to be doing first is wrapping what's going to be the center of the face and the area between the eyes. So let's do that. So I've got, like I said, I'm going with the traditional color for this pom-pom. So I'm going to go in the very center of my loom tool. And if you've never made a pom-pom before, I'll put a link in the description box below on just the general tips on how to make a pom-pom. I would start there and then graduate to the smiley pom, if you will. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to be doing the center first. So I'm going to wrap 1 strand of yarn around the center of my pom-pom, around the center of my tool rather, about 10 times. So 3, 4, 5. And that is going to become, once we cut it open, the center of this face. Now you might say, like, that's way more than 10 strands. You have to remember when you cut this pom-pom open, these two sides will actually come together, so you'll get a much thicker center. Now the next thing I'm going to do is that area between the eyes. So I'm going to keep this in the very center, and then I'm going to about 5 wraps, so like 6 to 8 wraps, it really depends on the size pom-pom you're doing, create a very base level that's going to go between the eyes. So a single layer, 4, 5, let's go with a 6. And you can see I have lots of gaps there, so I'm going to just kind of scoot that down. But it's a very thin layer compared to that center bundle we made a second ago. And then what I'm actually going to do, once I get the 5 or 6, I'm going to do a few more, a little bit higher than the eyes are going to go. And what that's going to prevent, it's going to prevent that black yarn from accidentally moving over and touching, because we want to make sure we always maintain a gap between those 2 eyes. Otherwise, you'll have 2 mouths, which is, I mean, look, if we're making alien pom-poms, then we'll talk. But for now, we want our eyes to be separate. So I'm going to go ahead and tuck this into a notch to keep all that yarn in place, and then trim. You don't have to necessarily cut the skein, the yarn from the skein. You can keep it, but I think it's much cleaner to just cut it off, and then we'll reattach it in a second. So the next thing we're going to do is make the mouth. Now, if I turn this, you'll really get a better idea of how we're building this pom-pom on the tool. So I've got the center, I've got the gap between the eyes. Now what I'm going to do is wrap the black yarn, or whatever your contrasting color yarn is. From the bottom, I want it to be on the other side of this yellow center bundle we made, to the left of it. That way when we cut it, the 2 sides touch. And then it's going to go up and around this bundle, and that's what's going to create that curve. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. And this I'm going to wrap about 10 times. So I'm starting, like I said, to the left of that bundle we just made. I'm going to wrap it about 10 times, starting at the bottom. So I went around the bottom 2 or 3 times. Now I'm going to go up that bundle we made, making sure I'm carefully lining up each of those strands. And I'm not counting, even though I told you to count. Do as I say, not as I do. But you want to make sure, see I'm flipping it over to make sure it's the back as well, that it's all touching, and that's what's going to keep it in that straight line, that curve around the center. So once I feel like I've done a good job covering that center but not making it too thick, I'll cut that off. When in doubt, it's actually better, and let me do a few extra wraps just to make sure I can show you once we cut it open. When in doubt, wrap more than you think you'll need, because it's way easier to remove extraneous pieces of yarn than having a big gap in the smile that you can't add yarn back into. I mean, you can stitch the yarn back in, kind of an advanced technique, but I rather, if you're not sure if you got it quite right, go ahead and wrap 1 or 2 extra times and we'll pull those at the end. So you saw I wrapped around 2 or 3 extra times on this one. So then when we cut it open, I'll just pull the extraneous strands to make sure I get the shape I'm going for. So now I'm going to cut this piece off. Now this is where it's going to get a little tricky to demo, but I'll do my best so you can see. This tail, I'm going to hold in place with 1 finger as I wrap the eyes. That's what's going to be happening next, is we're going to be wrapping this little line for the eyes, because I want this tail to stay, like I said, in line with this mouth. I don't want to cut my pom-pom open and have like a black strand sticking out somewhere. Maybe you'll accidentally get a nose or a nice little Marilyn Monroe freckle, which could be cute. But for now, I'm going to try to keep that in place with 1 finger as I wrap the eyes. So in order to wrap the eyes, we made that center bundle. I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap. As you can see, they're not perfectly aligned. There's a little bit of a gap of yellow, and then the eyes. So I'm going to start a few strands above where my mouth ended, and I'm going to wrap that around, always on top of the yellow, 4 to 5 times. And like I said, when in doubt, wrap more than you think you need, and then you can always pull. So that's 2, 3, and 4. Have it meet on the other end. So I've got 1 finger holding this little end. I'm going to use this finger to hold this end, making sure they stay in place as much as possible. And I'm going to trim that. So the rest of the wrapping is just going to be this outside color. But I do have a few tips here. So the first thing I'm going to do when I bring this outside color, the yellow, back onto my tool, I'm going to start by first securing these ends that my fingers are currently holding on the tool. And then I'm going to make sure that I put an even number of wraps on the left and right sides. That way it's ensuring that that face is on the very center of the pom-pom. Otherwise, when you cut it open, it might be like a little bit too low, a little bit too high, and we want to make sure we keep it centered. So like I said, the first thing I'm going to do is secure the ends that I'm currently precariously holding with my fingers. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take the yellow tail, match it up with the tail for the eyes I just cut. I'm going to bring it in an X over the center bundle. So I went around that side 2 times. Now I'm going to go around the other side 2 times, and it's totally okay if this overlaps wherever it overlaps, because it's the outside color. This color is going every which way. So now that that center bundle is secured on the tool, like I said, I'm going to do an even number. We're going to be doing a total of 180 wraps of this outside color. So I'm going to start by just centering it. So I'm going to do 10 to 20 wraps on the right. There you go, that was 15, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. Okay, so now I know that that face is centered on this tool, and we've done 15 on each side, so that's 30, so I have 150 more wraps to go. I'm going to do my best to keep an open gap here so that when I'm tying the center of this pom-pom, I'll have a place to put that string. Honestly, it's very challenging to keep that gap. So when it inevitably gets covered, that's okay. I'll show you. You can easily scoot the yarn over, or maybe not easily. You can carefully scoot the yarn over to get that string in there. So let me go ahead and wrap this 150 more times. I'm going to speed up this part so you don't have to actually watch me do it. Ready and go. All right, that is 180 total wraps. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is cut a piece about 10 to 12 inches long here, and that's going to be for tying off the center. Now, if you've seen our other how to make a pom-pom tutorials, or are you just familiar with making pom-poms with Omega Curl, which is our traditional pom-pom here at the Neon Tea Party, you know that we typically use embroidery floss for the center. You can absolutely use embroidery floss for the center of these pom-poms. It is more secure than actually using yarn, but when it comes to working with Omega Curl, using embroidery floss is a necessity, whereas for Fabrito, this acrylic yarn that I'm working with here, link in the description box below, for this yarn here, this yarn will totally hold the center of your pom-pom, but if you prefer to like make sure it's really, really secure, by all means use embroidery floss. But I'll show you using this same yarn because that's what I did for all of these, and it works just fine. So like I said, it inevitably covered that gap over here, and what I need to do, if you've made a pom-pom before, you know, is wrap it around the center twice. So what I'm going to do is just carefully scoot this as much as I can without it falling off the tool to get that string in that gap. So you can see I pulled it back to find that gap. I have it going against my palm here to make sure that the strings don't fall off. I'm going to slip that through the gap and then wrap it around. As I'm pulling it away from my palm, I'm also just making sure that I pull it back from the forks of this tool so that it does not fall off. Wrapping it around, and then I'm going to put it through that gap one more time. There we go. So now I know the string is secured around the middle of that. Flip it over, grab my tails, pull up to tighten it, and then the rest for tying off this pom-pom is business as usual to secure that center. There, make sure it's as centered as possible before I pull it off the tool. I feel good about that. Carefully pull that bundle off and then tighten like we do for any traditional pom-pom. So I'm going to pull up, make sure that center string is as tight as possible and out. Feels pretty tight to me, but I'm going to do it one more time to make sure. Up and out, and then secure with a knot. All right, so inside of this magic little pom-pom pancake is our smiley face. So the next thing we're gonna do is trim this open. So you're going to need something to catch your trimmings or let it fall onto your table, more power to you. I'm gonna grab this tray and we're gonna cut this open and we'll see that smiley face reveal. So cutting open all of these loops. I like to work in layers, outside loops until I get to the center, and that just helps me make sure that I don't actually miss any loops. You can see we've got the separation between the eyes, which is exactly what we want, and the mouth. See that face start to come together? All right, let's do this side. And what's also great about these is that the face is mirrored on both sides. So like I said, if you want to do a keychain, a garland, a pair of smiley face pom-pom earrings, the face will be mirrored on both sides of that ball, so you don't have to worry about the pom-pom turning. Right, a little bit more in the center. You can see that face taking shape, making sure I didn't miss any loops. And then we're going to start trimming. And you can see already that that mouth is pretty thick compared to the end result. And that's, like I said, you can wrap more than you think you'll need, and then we'll pull those as we sort of shape that smiley face. So let's go ahead and trim this guy. I'm going to fast forward this part as well so you guys don't have to watch me meticulously trim this like the perfectionist I am. I wanted to pause here for a second just to say that if you find in your trimming, you should be able to see that face starting to take shape. But if you're trimming your pom-pom and you're like, that looks more like a firework than a smiley face, that's okay. Hope is not lost quite yet. We will use our yarn needle, like I was saying at the top, to help shape the smiley. So I'll show you that in a second, but I'm gonna go ahead and finish trimming. All right, so here is our trimmed pom-pom. Let me move this out the way so you can certainly see it. Here's the trimmed pom-pom. I feel pretty good about the shape of the eyes. I'm gonna use my yarn needle to sort of straighten those lines out a bit, because like I said, as you trim and roll this thing around, things tend to shift. And like we talked about, I overwrapped the mouth, and that was intentional. Now, if you did the exact 10 wraps, it probably is gonna look a little bit closer to this, but if you wrapped more than 10 times, whether intentionally or accidentally, this is an easy fix. So I'm gonna turn this guy into this guy by removing some of these extra strings. So the first thing I'm gonna do is actually use my yarn needle to get the mouth closer to the shape we're going for, which is a smile. If you wanna make him growl or frown, you could totally modify this shape by pulling the right strands. But for example, I know that down here, this is a little bit extra. I don't need these. So I'm going to carefully move the yellow yarn out of the way. Oh, that's just a trimmed piece. Find these extra black pieces. Now before I pull it, see I'm pulling this down, and I can see if I pull that, the mouth is actually going to be separated there, and I don't want that. So I need to find where the extra ones are and pull those. So here's an extra one right here. So I'm going to carefully pull that out. And this one is just a little bit long, so I'll trim it. And where else do I have some longer pieces? Or extra pieces. Here's an extra wrap I can pull. I have some extras down here. Oh, that's just a trimming. This is one I don't need. And this is why I say overwrapping could actually be beneficial if you're worried about getting the shape exactly right, because then you just pull the extra pieces that aren't giving you the smiley vibe you're going for. So I've got some doubled up pieces here, so I'm going to go ahead and pull some there as well. And this one's doubled up. You can already tell we're getting a little bit closer. So I'm going to manipulate these strands a little bit to get them in the shape that I want. And then I need to also trim some of these pieces that have loosened up since we started moving them around. Right. These guys, these yellow ones are still a little bit too long. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim those as well, because you'll be surprised at how pieces that are too long can also completely throw off the shape of your smiley. So I'm gonna trim these in the very middle because that's throwing off our shape. And I'm gonna pull one more piece here that's splitting up our smile, and there we go. We have a happy little pom-pom. Now you can absolutely shorten the eyes if you want. You can make the smile more of a smirk by removing half of it, right? There's lots of ways to manipulate those, but that, in essence, is how you make a smiley face pom-pom. And like I said, these are so versatile. You can use them as a garland. You can make yourself a nice little happy garland with various smileys. You can turn it into a keychain. We've got a tutorial on how to make pom-poms keychains, and so you would just use a smiley pom in the place of a traditional pom. You can also make these guys. So the way I made this is a flower wall hanging that is just so cute. And all I did here was I made 5 pattern pom-poms. The outside petals are 2 inches, and then the inside smileys are that same 1 3/4 size, so the petals are a little bit larger, and they are quite literally just hot glued to cardboard. To be transparent, this is a Chick-fil-A nugget box, and this is a Kleenex box. Cereal box, Pop-Tart box, whatever thin cardboard you have on hand will totally work. And then, I mean, how cute is that on a wall? All right, that is a smiley face pom-pom. If you make them, obviously I need to see it. So please tag the Neon Tea Party if you share photos of your smiley poms. And if you have any questions at all, you can email us. You can drop it in the comments below. I cannot wait to see the happiness in pom-poms that you make. See you guys next time.